Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1994 sequel, Night of the Demons 2. Now, I honestly think this is a pretty good sequel. I don't think it's a great sequel. I don't think it's a great film, but it is a movie that I had fun with. I would say this is one of the more underrated sequels that I've seen, because of the fact that I don't really see a lot of people mention this film when it comes to good sequels. I honestly enjoyed this film for the most part. I found it to be pretty entertaining. I would say this is on par with the first film for me personally in terms of overall quality. If anyone disagrees, I'm perfectly fine with that, as always. But it's one of those movies that I went into with really no expectation at all whatsoever. And I was very pleasantly surprised by it. I thought it had some absolutely spectacular special effects. I thought it went by at a decent enough pace. It does have some pacing problems in the beginning. And I felt for what essentially was a direct-to-video film, I felt it looked quite good. And I will say this, I think all of film's restoration is a job well done. There's really no like behind the scenes extra footage though. I would have liked to have seen some behind the scenes footage on the makeup effects by Steve Johnson. But it does have a commentary with the cinematographer and the director. But anyway, and this DVD upconverts really nicely. So if you're having a hard time finding the Blu-ray and you're kind of leery about getting the DVD, like this looks really good for a DVD. The transfer is quite good looking. So anyway, the film was directed by Brian Trenchard-Smith, and I will say this: I think the direction in this film is serviceable. I think it's adequate, but I definitely don't think it's awesome. I don't think it's nearly as dynamic or as genuinely great as Kevin S. Tenney's work in the first film. You can kind of tell that Brian Trenchard-Smith's not a guy who has a whole lot of experience working with what is essentially a big film. I mean, despite the fact that this was released direct to video through Republic Pictures, it cost around 1.4 or 2.7 million dollars. So it's not your average direct to video movie. Second, this cost more than the first film did in terms of the budget. So it's not as small of a film as, for instance, one of the Leprechaun sequels. That being said, its direction is fine. It's just nothing that really stands out. You don't have the same dynamic energy, and it's very obvious when you see certain cutscenes. Well, not really cutscenes. What they are is stock footage. When you see stock footage from the first film that's reused in this movie, I don't understand why there's stock footage in this sequel, because it's not like it's a cheap production. Like there's enough money to not have to rely upon that. So it's honestly pretty distracting and kind of takes you out of the movie when they have this stock footage of like Angela floating down the hallway, being significantly younger and having a different makeup design, or the shot of the demon coming out of the furnace and going, opening doors, which is a definite homage to the chaotic camera work that Sam Raimi would become known for in the Evil Dead films. And so Kevin S. Tenney did his own take on that in the first film, and they reused that stock footage. So it just makes Trenchard Smith's very mediocre direction stand out even more, and not necessarily in a positive way. I would have liked to have seen Kevin S. Tenney come back to the franchise and direct this instead of Brian Trenchard Smith. But that's just me personally. Features a script by Joe Augustin. who worked on the first film. Now, this script, similar to the first film, it does have aspects that really work, that really do click, that are effective, that are efficient, that I thought were worthy of note. But then it does have some other elements that don't really work too well or aren't really as good as they could be. When it comes to the elements that I liked about this screenplay, I didn't mind the setting in a private school. I didn't mind that in a religious private school. Uh, I thought that was not a bad concept at all in terms of having it take place in that particular setting. And I liked how the film has Whole House incorporated back into the plot, and it does it in a way which isn't just another straight copy of the same beats as the first film. So they come up with different ways and reasons to go to Whole House. Now it kind of starts out with, oh, we're going to go to Whole House for a party, but then things don't really work out, and then they have to end up going back to Whole House in the climax. So I didn't mind that. I thought that was a different take on things that I definitely thought was. I'm trying to think of the right word. Definitely was intriguing in some ways. And speaking of intriguing, specifically innovation or innovate, really the best word is innovative. There's a lot of innovative stuff in this script when it comes to the spectacle, when it comes to the gore, when it comes to the surreal craziness and the weirdness. That is an aspect of the story and of the overall film that is very strong, and quite honestly might be one of the strongest things about the movie. I mean, on this particular standpoint alone, I think this film is better than the first movie. And one of the best films that from this particular era of the 1990s when it comes to this surreal spectacle of special effects. Steve Johnson comes back to do the effects for this film. And the effects in this are absolutely just mind-blowing and amazing. Where the effects in the first film were good, the demon makeup or the lipstick sequence, in this film things are turned up to 11. You can tell that Steve has more to work with, he has more of a budget, and he also has the multiple more years of experience that he has had up until this point. So he manages to just do all this crazy stuff. There's tits with hands, there's a lipstick tendril, there is a character in the film who gets decapitated with a swipe by Angela, and then later in the movie he's using his severed head as a basketball. There's a snake Angela effect at the end, which is just absolutely fantastic, and it looks incredibly lifelike and real. Some of the best effects that I've seen from the 1990s period is that snake effect. It's a really great looking design and piece of work by Steve Johnson and company. And then there's other stuff like people melting and getting melted into pieces by holy water and holy water balloons. It's just a real spectacle of special effects. So in that frame alone, this is worth a watch. I think this is worth a watch just for the effects, especially for those of you who are really into effects, like me. Like, I definitely feel it's something that is a must-see. But where it really falters is it's not really as consistently humorous or funny as the first film. The first film has loads of really fun memorable, quotable, and genuinely humorous lines of dialogue. This doesn't have nearly as many. There are some moments that made me chuckle because of just how random they are, like the face in the toilet, the sequence with Angela where she's giving this guy a hand job through the seat of the car, and he realizes that it's not his girlfriend that's giving him the hand job, and he looks down, and then the last image he sees is Angela's middle finger. She flips him off, and then her hand goes into the seat of the car and disappears. Like that was the biggest moment in the film overall that made me chuckle. Uh, and they try to do some more goofy type of humor, even more goofy humor than the first film. There's a nun who has prayer beads that she uses as nunchucks, which reminds me of the priest character in Dead Alive. You know, I kick ass for the Lord, and then the kind of vibe that this film had in terms of its tone reminded me in some ways of Dead Alive, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. But the thing is, Peter Jackson, he nailed that tone. This story, this script doesn't quite nail the tone as in the same fashion, let alone as well. So it's one of those movies where I can see why some people just found it too campy, or the tone was just a little bit too off for their tastes. But the film opens up with a scene of pure camp with with Kinkade. So I, I that's that's what it let you know what you were in for when it started, from the very beginning. So if you're into that kind of campy horror and tongue-in-cheek horror, something in the vein of like the 90s Goosebumps TV show but with more gore, then I think you'll be able to have some fun with this. But if you're not into that kind of stuff, then I think you might find it a little tiresome. That being said, yeah, I mean, it doesn't nearly have as many memorable lines of dialogue as the first movie, and it isn't nearly as funny. Also, the characters aren't really that strong. I didn't hate them by any means. I didn't think they were terrible. I didn't find really uh, them that unlikable, at least for the ones that I'm not supposed to like. But they didn't have that much depth. There were a lot of them that were really simply just cannon fodder, similar to some of the characters in the first movie. But the characters in the first film, the actors had more genuine charisma and natural bits of personality that they displayed on camera versus some of the actors in this. I would say the most memorable characters in this overall story and in this overall film are the villains, really. Kinkade, she's back again. Amelia Kinkade as Angela, and chewing up the scenery and having a blast. And I really loved watching her work, her magic on screen. Uh, I like Zoe Trilling as Shirley. She's essentially the second main antagonist, and I thought she did a good job in terms of portraying this character that's just really someone that should not be trusted and is a shameless slut, but also at the same time has a serious dark side. Um, I also didn't mind some other characters, like for instance, the character of I think it was Father Bob by played by Rod McCary, who is the resident skeptic. He doesn't believe in demons. He doesn't believe in demon possession. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. Uh, and I actually liked Sister Gloria, Jennifer Rhodes, when she's going into her demon hunter mode, like when she gets all prepared for war with demons and her personality shifts. I like her in that particular uh, role, but I don't like her when she's just a domineering, stereotypical, cliched uh, headmistress who's a massive raging bitch. I don't like her when she's that, and that's the point. You're not supposed to like her when she's being a raging bitch, but the problem is the screenplay doesn't really have a moment where it feels like there's really a reason for that other than she's just a domineering, typical, stereotypical, uh, bitchy headmistress. There's really no explanation for it. And then when she has the turn in her character, when she's more kooky, more out there, more outgoing, and is nicer and is willing to sacrifice herself for the good of many and for the kids, uh, it comes across as forced because there's not really that moment of transition. The moment of transition between the two portrayals of the character never really comes to pass. And so it feels like she's playing two different characters. So I don't think that really worked because I despite the fact that I did enjoy her performance and had fun with it, it didn't work as well as it could have because it just there wasn't that moment there was never a jumping off point for that evolution of her character. But when it comes to an evolution of a character, I thought in the screenplay that was actually pretty good. I would say Perry. Perry starts out as this nerdy outcast who it seems like he's going to be using demonology to bring demons into our world to get revenge, like evil speak or something like that. But as the film goes on, he realizes that that's not really the best route to go, and he becomes more of a hero and more of a martyr, and that's something that I thought was handled pretty well. I actually grew to not mind that character. So, but that's just me personally. But yeah, I didn't mind Perry as it, and always thought it was interesting to have that kind of character anyway. So, and especially have that character and have him have a turn with his character arc. It was fun to see Christine Taylor, who would go on to be Marsha in the Brady Bunch movies as a character named Terry, who is kind of an antagonist, but kind of not. I would say they didn't really go all the way with that character. She seems to be like the right hand girl for the one of the main villains in Shirley, but she gets possessed, and then she gets saved afterwards, and then she's really never heard from again. So it's one of those things where you should have just had her just stay possessed or something. But maybe there was something in the contract. Maybe there's something going on. I don't know. Uh, there's other characters like Z Boy, who's just one of the two henchmen for Shirley. He's just a horny white boy, really. But he had the actor who played him, Darin Heames. He had a lot of energy, so he was definitely having fun with the role. And I mean, then you have Mouse, Melissa, who's played by Merle Kennedy. She is essentially the lead, and while I didn't mind her, I do agree with some of the criticisms that she really never gets out of her shell. It seems like it's building up to that point by the end of the movie, but it never really pans out. So, on one hand, I get what they're going for, but it makes for a really weak and quite forgettable protagonist. Uh, and I honestly liked the character of trying to remember what her name. Yeah, Phoebe. I liked her more. I thought she was a much better actress, and I also felt that she was a better character. I would have liked to have seen her be the lead in this film, but instead they went with a Mouse, and I think it is. I think her name is Phoebe. I could have sworn her name is Phoebe. Maybe it's Linda. Like I don't think it is Linda though. I thought her name was Phoebe, but I don't see the name listed on here Oh, it's BB. Sorry. So yeah, it's BB. Phoebe, BB sounds very similar. But anyway, yeah, I liked Cristi Harris as BB. Like, I thought she should have been the lead. Um, and I didn't mind one of the other guys. I think it was Rick. I didn't mind him, or I believe. Yeah, no, I believe it's actually Johnny, who's played by Johnny Moran. But anyway, there were some characters in there that were okay. I would say the strongest one in terms of what really drew me the most to the film would be more the villains, Angela and Shirley. But I didn't mind Phoebe. I didn't mind BB. Sorry, I keep saying Phoebe because that's what I thought. I could have sworn I heard that, but apparently it's BB. Like the BB gun. But yeah, not the best characters, not the best amount of character development, but there's some moments there. I would say the story. Another thing that I didn't really think the script was really that effective at is, despite the fact that you have these really spectacular effects, there's really not a moment where there isn't that much suspense. There isn't really that much genuine horror, and there are some moments that are undercut a little bit too much by comedy, and the comedy is lame, so that it doesn't really accentuate the horror in a way that really is that effective. It takes a little bit to get going, but once things kind of start to go awry, then it goes by at a decent enough pace. I will also say this: I don't think this the score by Jim Manzi, he's a good composer, and then the score is not bad by any means, but I don't think it's on the same level as Dennis Michael Tenney's work in the first film. Also, the soundtrack in this movie is nowhere near as memorable or nowhere near as much of an earworm as the soundtrack is in the first movie. And in performance wise, like I said, I like Kinkade. Really had a lot of fun with her reprising her role as Angela. I thought Cristi Harris did a good job as BB. Z Boy played his Darin Heames played his role well. Um, I didn't mind Robert Jayne as Perry. Ron McCary as Father Bob. I mean, Jennifer Rhodes, she did what she was asked to do. She played a convincing, bitchy headmistress, and she also did a good job playing the more light-hearted character. But like I said, it's just one of those things where I can't really blame her because she did a good job. I blame the script more than anything else. Zoe Trilling as Shirley. And there's a few other actors and actresses, but I mean, for the most part, there were some flat performances, but there really wasn't anything that stood out to me in a way where I was like, oh my god, that is just bad. Like, I didn't really think any of the, like, the worst that any of these performances got to me is they were a little bit flat. But I don't remember seeing anything that made me, like, cringe in terms of the acting. Now, it's also features some cinematography by David Lewis. There are some shots that look really good. Some of the shots in Whole House and the climax. The sequences that shoot more of the effects. There was a party scene that I thought was pretty well done in terms of the lighting. But there's a lot of stuff, though, that's really not that impressive when it comes to cinematography. I would say it's on the same level as the direction. Uh, the editing by Daniel Duncan, it's fine. There really wasn't any moments when it comes to the editing where I thought it was a problem or anything that was problematic. So in that regard, I would say if we're talking about the three different elements, the cinematography, the direction, the editing, I would say the editing in this film is probably the best technical aspect of the movie other than the visual and practical effects. But even the visual effects have some negatives. For one, I don't know why this film ends this way. The film ends with BB. She has the lipstick case, and there's this absolutely horrendous looking, laughable, crappy CGI snake that pops out at the audience, and it just makes you laugh, but not in the way where you're like, ah, that's supposed to be funny. I think that's clear unintentional hilarity that only comes from the result of incompetence, and that's an incompetent effect, and it's just bad. I don't know what they were thinking with that. But other than that, the effects are great. The demon makeup is not the same as the demon makeup in the first film, but I think in large part that's probably due to the fact that Steve Johnson wanted to do something a little bit different. It's got a similar look, but it's not entirely identical. Um, but it's not different enough that it doesn't feel like it's coming from the same place. But really, like I said, where the film really stands out is its visual with its practical effects. I mean, Steve Johnson outdid himself here with the effects for this film, and they are a real treat to watch. But anyway, I don't really know what else to say about Night of the Demons 2, except I like I said earlier in the beginning, I do recommend this one. Check it out sometime for the spectacle of the special effects. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.